In 1985, network television executives had a rule so unspoken it didn't need to be written down. Women over 50 were invisible. They were someone's mother, someone's grandmother, someone's afterthought who shuffled in, delivered a punchline about arthritis, and shuffled back into the kitchen where they belonged. Then 4 women sat down at a Miami kitchen table with a slice of cheesecake and blew that rule into ashes so fine they're still sweeping them up. The Golden Girls premiered on NBC on September 14, 1985, and for 7 seasons and 180 episodes, it did something television had never seen before and hasn't quite managed since. It put 4 women past 60 at the center of the frame and let them talk about everything network television had spent 40 years pretending didn't exist. Sex, death, loneliness, dignity, desire, fear. The show didn't argue with Hollywood's rules about older women. It simply acted like those rules were written for someone else entirely. Here is where 8 of the people who made that miracle possible went when the cameras finally stopped rolling. 1. Bea Arthur walked onto every soundstage like she was already 5 minutes late for something more important and had decided to be gracious about waiting. Dorothy Zbornak was tall, sardonic, divorced from a man who deserved it, and underneath the armor, desperately lonely in a way the show's writers never let the audience forget for too long. Bea Arthur played that loneliness like a second skin because she understood it from the inside out. Born May 13, 1922 in New York City, she had already won 2 Tony Awards before television ever found her. Mame in 1966. Fiorello before that. By the time she settled into Dorothy's shoulder pads, she was 63 years old and had been working since most of her castmates were in grade school. After the final episode aired in 1992, Bea Arthur did something unexpected. She walked away from the machine that had made her famous and went back to where she started. In 2002, she returned to Broadway with a one-woman show called Bea Arthur on Broadway, Just Between Friends. It was a reminder for anyone who had forgotten that the woman underneath Dorothy's withering put-downs was a stage actor of such precise control she could hold an audience silent with nothing more than the space between words. She kept acting in small films, For Your Consideration, The Curse of the Jade Scorpion, roles that paid nothing close to what television offered but gave her something better. Freedom! Off-screen, she was quietly, ferociously committed to causes that had nothing to do with her own visibility. LGBTQ youth, homeless teenagers, organizations that never made headlines but saved lives every single day. When she died on April 25, 2009 from cancer at 86, she left the majority of her estate to the Ali Forney Center in New York City, a facility that provides housing to homeless LGBTQ youth. Dorothy Zbornak never suffered fools. Bea Arthur never suffered injustice. And the money she gave away after she was gone said more about who she actually was than any interview she ever gave. 2. Betty White was born January 17, 1922 in Oak Park, Illinois, which meant she was already 63 when Rose Nylund first looked confused at that Miami kitchen table and had been on television so long she remembered when the cameras were hot enough to burn. Life with Elizabeth in the early 50s. The Mary Tyler Moore Show where she played Sue in Nivens, the man-hungry happy homemaker who earned her 2 Emmy Awards by being so sweetly vicious audiences didn't know whether to laugh or flinch. By the time Rose sat down, Betty White was already an institution. Rose Nylund was sweet, slow, and secretly the most dangerous comedian in every scene she occupied. Those street Olaf stories that wandered into the wilderness and somehow always found their way home. The cheerful oblivion that disarmed everyone who tried to wound her. The warmth so genuine it became a weapon. Betty White played all of it with an instinct sharpened by 4 decades of knowing exactly where the camera was and exactly what it needed. After Miami, she never stopped. The Golden Palace, the spin-off that lasted 1 season and deserved more. Boston Legal. The Bold and the Beautiful. Then in 2010, something happened that had never happened before. Facebook users, ordinary people who had grown up with her in their living rooms, organized a campaign to get her to host Saturday Night Live. She was 88 years old. She did it. She was brilliant. A generation that only knew her as the sweet grandmother suddenly realized she had been stealing scenes since before their parents were born. Hot in Cleveland ran 5 seasons on TV Land and gave her a new audience. Memes. Cultural touchstones. A symbol of joyful longevity that people projected their own hopes onto because she never gave them reason to do otherwise. She was scheduled to turn 100 on January 17, 2022. Betty White died on December 31, 2021, 17 days short of the milestone. The grief that followed was so vast it felt almost embarrassing until you remembered she had been in people's homes for 70 years and had never once given them a reason to look away. 3. Rue McClanahan was born February 21, 1934 in Hilton, Oklahoma, which meant she arrived in the world with Southern manners already baked in and spent the rest of her life figuring out what to do with them. Blanche Devereaux was written as a one-note joke about a woman who wanted men too much and was too old to be doing it. Rue McClanahan refused the one note. She played Blanche with a self-awareness underneath the performance that turned the character into something genuinely complicated. A woman who had built her entire identity around desirability because the alternative, sitting alone with what she actually felt, was too terrifying to attempt. She had spent 5 seasons on Maude alongside Bea Arthur before Miami, which meant the two of them arrived on set with a friendship already barbed and tested and ready for prime time. After Golden Girls, Rue went back to the stage where she started. She appeared in Starship Troopers, which her younger fans loved and her older fans were confused by. Will and Grace. A string of holiday movies that gave her a second career she had never planned on. She wrote a memoir in 2007 called My First 5 Husbands and the Ones Who Got Away. The title delivered exactly what it promised and more. She had been married 6 times and spoke about each relationship with a candor Blanche Devereaux would have admired and probably envied. Rue McClanahan died June 3, 2010 from a brain hemorrhage following surgery. She was 76. Blanche wanted to be desired. Rue McClanahan made people love her instead, which is the harder outcome to achieve and the better one to carry. 4. Estelle Getty was born July 25, 1923 in New York City, which meant she had spent decades in theater and regional productions before this role found her at 62. Sophia Petrillo was 80 years old, 4'11", and consistently the most dangerous person in any room she occupied. The purse that swung like a weapon. The Shady Pines references that landed like threats. The stories about Sicily that started somewhere and ended exactly where the scene needed them to go. Here is what made the performance extraordinary. Estelle Getty was younger than Bea Arthur. By 3 years. She spent 7 seasons performing old age rather than inhabiting it. The shuffle. The tremor. The way Sophia's eyes went sharp just before the punchline landed. Every episode required technical work that no one in the audience ever noticed because the performance was too seamless to betray the effort. After Miami, she continued in The Golden Palace and Empty Nest. She appeared in Stop or My Mom Will Shoot alongside Sylvester Stallone in 1992, which was not anyone's finest hour but paid the bills. Then the decline began. Lewy body dementia. A progressive neurological disease that steals the mind while leaving the body intact long enough to watch it happen. The later stages were painful in public and watched by people who had loved her on screen and didn't know how to look away. Estelle Getty died July 22, 2008 at 84. Her son Carl was with her. Sophia always had the last word. In real life, the last word belongs to the people who remember you. There are a great many of those. 5. Herb Edelman was born November 5, 1930 in Brooklyn, New York. Stan Zbornak arrived in Dorothy's life like a recurring injury. The ex-husband who kept showing up, kept meaning well, kept falling short, and kept being impossible to entirely write off. Herb Edelman played him across 26 episodes with a wounded bumbling sweetness that made Stan genuinely funny and genuinely pathetic in equal proportion. That is a combination very few actors can calibrate without tipping into one direction or the other. He had built a long career before this role. The Odd Couple film opposite Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. The Way We Were with Barbra Streisand and Robert Redford. After Golden Girls, he kept working until his health declined. Herb Edelman died July 21, 1996 from emphysema. He was 62. Stan was the man Dorothy divorced and never entirely got over. Herb Edelman played the joke and the heartbreak with equal honesty, and the show was measurably better every time he walked through the door. 6. Harold Gould was born December 10, 1923 in Schenectady, New York. Miles Weber came into Rose's life in the later seasons as a retired professor with a complicated past that turned out to be considerably more complicated than anyone initially disclosed. Harold Gould played him with a warmth and wary intelligence that made the pairing with Betty White feel completely natural. He had trained at Cornell and built a distinguished academic and theatrical career before committing fully to acting. He played Rose's father Martin Morgenstern on the Mary Tyler Moore Show for years, which gave him a warmth and family man credibility he carried directly into this role. After Golden Girls, he continued working in theater and television with the discipline of someone who treated acting as a lifelong practice rather than a career with a finish line. Gilmore Girls. Patch Adams. Stage productions across the country. He returned to the role of Martin Morgenstern in the Mary Tyler Moore reunion special. Harold Gould died September 11, 2010 from prostate cancer. He was 86. Miles Weber had secrets he eventually told. Harold Gould had a career he kept building until there was no more time to build it. 7. Susan Harris created the Golden Girls. She had already written some of the most honest and daring television of the 70s, and the writing staff she built around this show was responsible for episodes that addressed AIDS, race, sexuality, aging, and grief with a directness network television in 1985 had no template for. The show won the Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Series in its first season. The writing was the reason. Susan Harris went on to create Empty Nest and Nurses, both set in the same Miami universe. The writers who came through that room spread across television for the next 3 decades, carrying with them the lesson that the most uncomfortable subjects handled with genuine wit and genuine respect are the ones audiences remember longest. 8. Leslie Nielsen was born February 11, 1926 in Regina, Saskatchewan. He showed up as one of Blanche's most memorable suitors, and the audience response said everything about how well the casting worked. Tall, silver-haired, a face built for sincerity, and a career that had spent 20 years dismantling it. He had spent the 50s and 60s as a legitimate dramatic actor. Forbidden Planet. The Poseidon Adventure. Then Airplane in 1980 revealed that the most dangerous comic weapon he owned was his absolute refusal to acknowledge the joke. By the time he appeared in Miami, the Naked Gun franchise had made him one of the most recognizable comedic faces on the planet. He continued working through the 90s and 2000s. Scary Movie 3 and 4. Superhero movie. Dozens of projects that kept his particular brand of deadpan alive and profitable well into his 80s. Leslie Nielsen died November 28, 2010 from pneumonia. He was 84. 7 seasons. One Miami Kitchen. For women who were each told at various points in their careers that they were too old for the room and who responded by building the best room on television. The cheesecake was fake. The friendship looked real. The writing was extraordinary. And somewhere in the world right now, on some channel at some hour, it is still airing.